Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing an industrial farmhouse thrift flip and showing you how to get a chippy finish with Dixie Belle Sea Spray and IOD. You can find a full product list in the description of this video and all your crafting needs on our website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au. This lovely set of drawers has been sitting in my stash for a while and it's time to give it a makeover. It had a lot of potential, but it was very plain. To begin, I'm mixing Sea Spray with Dixie Belle's Burlap Chalk Mineral Paint. I am just adding as much as I feel will be appropriate. It really is up to you. The more you add, the more texture you get. I'm applying my Sea Spray with a chip brush today. Sea Spray can be really tough on your brush, so you don't want to use your good brushes for this. So I'm brushing it on and then I'm stippling to get some texture. I'm also using my plastic stir stick to apply it heavier in some areas than others. Today we're working with layers. If you want a piece to look old, chippy and weathered, you have to think about your base layer. You're building upon each one to create that look. So Sea Spray gives the paint texture, stippling also helps with texture, and sometimes stippling even looks like cracked paint as well. So you've really got to keep those different layers in mind when you're creating a look like this. When creating an old world look, I also like to use at least 3 colors. I have the brown of the furniture that I started with. Now I'm coming in with burlap, and there'll be an additional 3rd color that I will apply over the top of the dried burlap. As you can see, I'm repeating very similar steps. I'm first brushing on the Sea Spray, starting off horizontally, and then sometimes I'm changing directions to help spread it, and then I come in and I start stippling and dabbing my chip brush onto the Sea Spray. Chip brushes are great because they are going to give you additional texture. I've also seen people apply a texture medium with a spatula as well. So again, it just depends on the look you're going for. I really want this to look like layers of old chippy paint, so that's why I'm using the chip brush. This part is quite time consuming, but it is so worth it. The more texture you have as your first coat, the better your second coat is going to look. So this is the ugly stage of the piece. This is where you really need to trust the process, that you are building a foundation that you're going to be able to add to get the look that you want. Remember, I'm not going for full coverage here. I still want some of that brown tone to show through underneath because we are going for a 3-tone look. In terms of cleanup, Sea Spray could clog your sink if you wash your brushes there, so I suggest throwing out the chip brush or washing them in a bucket first. Once I have my base coat down, I need to let it dry thoroughly before the next step. Next, I'm going to be using one of IOD's silicone paint blades. I'm using the larger of the blades, and I've poured out some of Dixie Belle's Bay Breeze Silk Mineral Paint into a bowl, and I'm dipping the spatula in, and as you can see, I'm now wiping it on the piece, and I'm going to be changing directions as I go. So I'm going horizontally, and then I do change direction and go vertically, and you really want to have only a little bit of paint on your paint blade for this step, because as you can see, the blade is skipping across some of the texture that we've created, and that is what gives this that beautiful chippy old world look. You can also use a spatula for this step. It really is up to what you have available, but you do want something similar because it will give you a similar result. You need to have something that's going to be able to skip over the top of the texture that you have created. Bay Breeze is a beautiful pale blue, and I think it pairs so nicely with the other colors that we have on this piece. And because of the pigments in this paint, I am only going to have to do 1 coat here, and it also helps that as we're applying the paint with the paint blade, we are getting a thicker application here, so we're not going to have to go over the top of this again. If you do have to, I would just recommend that you do it with a very light hand, because you don't want to cover up all of that skipping that that you've achieved, and you don't want to hide the chippy look that you're going for. I'm using the wider paint blade from the pack. There is also a smaller one that you could use if maybe the piece that you're working on is a bit smaller. My piece is pretty big here, so this is making this particular technique really easy. And as I said previously, you could use the little spatula that comes with your filler or your spackling instead. Dixie Belle's Silk Mineral Paint has a built-in stain blocker, so I'm not worried about bleed through here, and it also has a built-in top coat, so I'm not going to have to do any extra sealing on this piece once I'm done. If you are using a paint that does not have the built-in stain blocker and you are worried about bleed through, I definitely recommend using some sort of stain blocking primer before you get started. There are a few areas that I'm going back over just lightly to add a little bit more paint, but again, this is going to be to your liking. It's up to you and how much you want of the other colors to show through and how chippy you want this to look. As you can see, I'm going on the sides and I'm repeating the same steps. I'm also going to do the same thing on the top, and I just love how each area looks unique, and this really gives such an authentic chippy look. I really love this technique, and it is quite easy to achieve this look as well. Once I have the coverage that I want, I will leave this to dry for 2 hours. We're going for a bit of an industrial look here, so I am replacing the handles with these library card catalogue handles, and I've just lined it up. I'm going to sit it just above the hole, and I've marked where the different screws need to go, and I'm going to start off my holes there with a small drill bit. Once I've got them started, I'm going to add the little screws. I'm using a Phillips head drill bit here to attach each one. I decided to sit the handles a little bit higher than you would usually see handles, because whenever you see library card catalogues or map drawers, they usually do sit a little bit higher. They've got the labels there, and I just really want to have a bit of a nod to those sorts of pieces. So here I'm just measuring each side so that I can get as close to centered for each handle as possible. If you like this look but you don't have these handles, you could always use a more simple wooden knob, and I would just be doing a similar paint finish on those to get them to blend in, or you could come in with a simple metal knob. Again, it just depends what look you're after. Next, I'm going to be aging this up even further. I'm going to be using Dixie Belle's Best Dang Wax in brown. Now, I didn't think that I would have to add clear wax first like you usually would, because silk has a built-in top coat. However, I wasn't having the same freedom that I like to have to be able to wipe it back, so I'm coming in with clear now to help erase it a little bit and tone it down. I'm going to repeat the similar steps just for this drawer to keep it uniform, but it's definitely something that I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to get that clear wax down first so that I have that freedom that I like. Now, I like to add my waxing and my finishing products after I have my handles attached, because I want to be able to add some age around those areas, because that's where age would naturally occur on a vintage piece. I just love how the wax is catching all of that texture. Now I'm coming in with some Dixie Dirt in charcoal, and because we have our wax there, this powder form product can stick to those areas. And again, this is going to just add to that look of age. If you didn't have any wax to use, you could also use a glaze for this step, or you could create a paint wash as well. It really is something that you can achieve with quite a few products. If you're using a coloured wax over your clear wax, you need to make sure that your clear wax hasn't been on there for too long. You really need to do this before it's cured. If you don't like this sort of a rustic look, this is definitely a step that you could leave out, or you could come in with a white wax and you could add that to the details instead. Here you can really see the difference that wax makes. It really deepens that color and gives it a lot of depth. And again, it just really lends itself to that weathered, worn look that we're going for. I'm repeating the same steps with the clear wax and the brown wax to the sides and to the top. As well as giving my piece a beautiful aged finish, this is also going to seal and further protect my piece. After this had been curing for 24 hours, I decided to add some of IOD's letterpress stamp with some permanent black ink. So I've added my numbers to a small piece of thin mount, and now I'm inking up the stamps, and then when I'm ready I'll hold it in position and press down. I don't need this to be perfect, I just need it to be visible, so I'm just pressing it down, and then when I'm happy I'm pulling it away. So I'm going to be just going 1, 2, 3, 4 down the side there, keeping it pretty simple, but I think it will just add that little bit of extra something special. I'm using IOD's permanent black ink for this, but you could also use a paint as well, and you could apply it using a brayer. If you don't have access to stamps and you want to achieve a similar look, you could do some stenciling, you could do some decoupage, you could even print off some numbers on a computer and do some tracing. It really is up to you and the look you're going for. Next, I'm also going to be adding another element down the bottom. I'm going to be using one of the stencils from the JRV advertising labels. I'm specifically using part of the cotton design. I'm just going to position it down the bottom, center it best I can, and then I'm using a small artist brush with some of Dixie Belle's Umber Silk Mineral Paint, and I'm just dabbing and stippling over the top of the letters. You can see I do offload a lot of paint. You don't want to have much paint when you're stenciling, and I'm not pressing too heavy. We don't need this to be too bold. We want it to look like an old weathered label. I am doing this over the top of the ink has a quite dry bottom of water base, so I'm not worried about just dabbing off slightly distressed. And also we're not going for perfect, we are actually going to be going in surely and doing a bit of distressing.